He hired her to humiliate her, thinking her autism made her weak. But what she did next turned his billion-dollar empire upside down and left him begging for mercy. Marcus Sterling was everything you'd expect from a tech billionaire. 6 feet tall, designer suits that cost more than most people's cars, an ego that could fill a stadium. At 35, he controlled Sterling Dynamics, a massive software company built on his ruthless business tactics and complete disregard for anyone he deemed inferior. His corner office on the 47th floor overlooked the city like a throne, and he ruled his empire with an iron fist wrapped in Italian leather. Then there was Sophie Chun, 26 years old, brilliant beyond measure, but struggling to find her place in a world that didn't understand her. Diagnosed with autism at age 8, Sophie had learned to navigate life with careful routines, noise-canceling headphones, and an extraordinary ability to see patterns others missed. She was petite, often wore the same comfortable clothes day after day, and had a habit of avoiding eye contact that made most people underestimate her intelligence. After months of job rejections despite her computer science degree from MIT, Sophie was desperate for any opportunity to prove herself. Marcus had built his fortune on exploiting others' weaknesses, and when his HR department mentioned they needed to hire someone with a disability to meet new inclusion requirements, he saw it as just another checkbox to tick. But Marcus Sterling never did anything without a twisted purpose. During a board meeting where investors questioned his company's lack of diversity, Marcus made a declaration that would change everything. "Fine, you want inclusion? I'll hire someone with autism as my personal assistant. But when they inevitably fail, I want it documented. We'll prove that these diversity quotas are nothing but feel-good nonsense that hurts real business." The board members shifted uncomfortably, but Marcus was already formulating his cruel plan. He would hire someone with autism, set them up for failure with impossible tasks, and when they inevitably cracked under pressure, he'd have his proof that normal people were simply superior. It was personal. His younger brother had autism, and Marcus had spent his childhood resenting the attention and accommodations his brother received. This was his chance to settle that old score on a grand scale. When Sophie's resume crossed his desk, Marcus smiled coldly. Perfect grades, exceptional technical skills, but multiple gaps in employment history. She was exactly the type of person he could exploit and discard. Sophie's interview was a masterclass in manipulation. Marcus put on his most charming facade, speaking in measured tones and offering accommodations he had no intention of honoring. He promised her a quiet workspace, flexible schedules, and the chance to work on meaningful projects. Sophie, desperate for an opportunity and touched by what seemed like genuine understanding, accepted the position. From day one, Marcus's plan unfolded with calculated cruelty. He assigned Sophie impossible deadlines, constantly changed her work environment, and deliberately created sensory overload situations. He'd schedule back-to-back meetings in crowded conference rooms, demand she attend loud networking events, and criticize her for stimming behaviors that helped her cope with stress. "This is the real world, Sophie," he'd say with false sympathy whenever she struggled. "If you can't handle basic professional expectations, maybe this job isn't for you." But what Marcus didn't anticipate was Sophie's incredible resilience and her extraordinary ability to see patterns in data that others miss completely. Despite his sabotage, she began completing tasks with an efficiency and accuracy that astounded even him. Her autism wasn't a weakness. It was a superpower he completely underestimated. Sophie worked late into the night, using her hyper-focus to master complex systems in days that took others months to understand. She created organizational systems that streamlined processes across multiple departments. Her attention to detail caught critical errors that had been costing the company millions, and her innovative solutions to technical problems were nothing short of genius. 6 months into her employment, Sophie made a discovery that would change everything. While organizing Marcus's files for a board presentation, her pattern recognition abilities kicked into overdrive. She noticed discrepancies in financial reports, unusual money transfers, and a complex web of shell companies that pointed to one shocking conclusion. Marcus Sterling was embezzling from his own company. For years, Marcus had been siphoning millions of dollars through fake consulting contracts and inflated vendor payments. He'd hidden it brilliantly from auditors and board members, but Sophie's unique cognitive abilities allowed her to see the forest for the trees. What she found was a paper trail of fraud totaling over $50 million. At the same time, Sophie discovered Marcus's real reason for hiring her. She found emails between him and board members discussing his experiment with hiring someone with autism, complete with plans to document her failures and use them as justification for discriminatory hiring practices. The betrayal cut deep, but also ignited something powerful within her, a determination to turn the tables on the man who had tried to use her as a pawn. Sophie realized she held the keys to the kingdom. Her position as Marcus's assistant had given her access to everything: financial records, board communications, strategic plans, and most importantly, evidence of his crimes. Marcus had unwittingly placed his worst enemy in the perfect position to destroy him. Sophie's plan was methodical and brilliant. She documented everything, created detailed reports of Marcus's embezzlement, and quietly reached out to key board members and major investors. But she didn't stop there. Using her understanding of the company's systems and her legitimate access to various accounts, Sophie began implementing changes that would protect employees and restore integrity to the company. She worked with the company's ethical employees to expose the toxic culture Marcus had created. Her detailed analysis revealed not just financial fraud, but also a pattern of discrimination, harassment, and illegal business practices that went far beyond her own experience. The confrontation came during a board meeting Marcus had called to discuss performance issues with his assistant, his final attempt to publicly humiliate Sophie and justify her termination. But when the meeting began, it wasn't Marcus presenting. It was Sophie, backed by 3 board members and the company's lead legal counsel. "Mr. Sterling," Sophie said, her voice steady despite her racing heart, "I have some performance issues to discuss too." What followed was the most precise and devastating presentation Marcus had ever witnessed. Sophie laid out his crimes with mathematical precision, presented evidence of his embezzlement, and detailed his discriminatory practices. She spoke clearly and methodically, her autism allowing her to present complex information without emotional interference. Marcus tried to interrupt, to gaslight and manipulate as he always had, but Sophie was prepared for every tactic. She had recordings, documents, and witnesses. His empire of lies crumbled in real time as board members' faces grew increasingly grave. The fallout was swift and absolute. Marcus Sterling was arrested for embezzlement and fraud. His assets were frozen, and he faced decades in prison. But the real shock came when the board announced their choice for interim CEO, while the company restructured. Sophie Chen, the same woman Marcus had hired to humiliate, was now sitting in his office, making decisions about the future of his company. Sophie's first acts as CEO were to implement comprehensive anti-discrimination policies, create neurodiversity hiring programs, and establish employee support systems that protected vulnerable workers. Under Sophie's leadership, Sterling Dynamics transformed from a toxic workplace into an industry leader in inclusive practices. The company's stock price soared as her innovative management style and technical insights drove unprecedented growth. Her autism, which Marcus had seen as a liability, became the foundation for a more ethical and profitable business model. 6 months later, from his prison cell, Marcus watched a news report about Sophie being named CEO of the Year by Tech Leadership magazine. The woman he'd tried to break had not only survived his cruelty, she'd used it as fuel to build something better than he ever could have imagined. Sophie's story became an inspiration across the tech industry, proving that neurodiversity wasn't just about inclusion. It was about unlocking human potential that conventional thinking often overlooked. Never underestimate someone because of their differences. What you see as weakness might just be the very strength that brings down your house of cards. In a world that often values conformity over capability, sometimes it takes a different kind of mind to see the truth that everyone else has missed. True power isn't about dominating others. It's about lifting them up and creating something greater than yourself. Sophie Chen didn't just take over a company. She proved that empathy, integrity, and authentic leadership will always triumph over cruelty and greed. If you want more stories like that, please subscribe to receive videos every day. Thank you, and until next time.